So, I worked almost all my career in the IT projects. I have IT background. I was a developer a long time ago. Recently, or 5 years or so ago, I switched to agile environments. Currently, I am a Scrum Master and Agile coach in RBI. I work in several settings, and one of the biggest ones is the leading transformation tribe, and we are developing the mobile banking. So, and what Christoph was mentioning about the DevSecOps, this is part of what we were doing before. And what I saw in a lot of cases, in a lot of settings, is that the backlog, and it's not an easy thing. And you have, in a lot of cases, especially in the complex projects, it might be really scary. So it's usually one-dimensional structure with very different granularity of the things, epics, user stories, features for the product, technical stuff, building up the DevOps, creating the test automation, etc. It's not that easy to orient there. So because it's really flat and unstructured, in the just priority is the only way how to structure it in this case. Prioritization, it's not that easy because you don't have this big picture about all the things that you have in different areas in the different complexity. And in a lot of cases, because of this, the focus is on the features of the product, but not on the customer and the user journeys, which is a common and very typical problem that I see in a lot of cases. But of course, there is a way how to make it better. Silver bullet, no, of course not the silver bullet, but let's hope it will be really helpful for you, is the story mapping. So it helps you to visualize the whole thing. Yeah? And the whole thing, again, depending on your needs, it might be very different. We'll come to this. It keeps the customer in focus because it's you're always focusing on the user journey if you're doing the story mapping for the product features. It helps you a lot in release planning, actually. So define MVP, define the next releases, MMPs, etc. It creates the common understanding of the whole team because the story mapping is the team exercise. It's not that someone sits alone in the room and creates this and then pushes back to the team. It's really common exercise, and this creates this alignment across the teams. And it avoids waste. So, or at least it helps to avoid waste and to identify what is needed, what is not. So when and where? Actually, you can use the story mapping everywhere. Really, everywhere. I will show you some examples. So of course, the most cases it's used on the product, and depending on the complexity of the product or complexity of the feature of the product can be done on the different levels, on different scale. Sometimes on the product level, if the whole user journey can be described rather easily, or in case of the complex product and the complex features, it can be done on the feature level. And then the granularity, of course, is so that the things are much more granular. It can be done for the process optimizations. So you have some process, and then with the story map, you make it better and better. And of course, the test automation. So this is the main topic for today, how it is for the test automation. But before going into details, for those of you who are not very familiar with the story mapping technique, I want to give a few words and a few slides to spend on what is it exactly and how to do this stuff. So this is roughly the example, and the first thing you usually do is define the user journey. And this is this stuff here. Then with every step, with every task of the user journey step, you improve the current situation. So it might be a user story if those are epics, and those are the user stories. It might be the detailed description of the process steps with growing the complexity. And you always go from the small to the big. So you start with very easy, quick wins, and then you increase the complexity and increase the fidelity of the features. Yeah? So from easy to complex. And you create, so why it's so useful. You can create with low efforts the walking skeleton of the whole process. So you can see rather quickly the whole process at work and to get the feedback, which is getting the feedback is one of the key things in Agile, right? So you don't invest a lot, which is usually, not usually, but I saw a lot of times as well, the common mistake that some product owners, okay, we are starting with this epic, we need to finalize it till the end, and then we can move forward. And then in 1 month, you see that this feature is done, but the whole process is not even close to be there. And there is no real value of any feedback that you can get. And what helps, especially in the situation when you have already some things done, is to identify the status quo. So what is your current stage of this process, of this user journey? Because you might have already some things done, and you're not starting from complete scratch. So this understanding where you're standing right now and what is the next step to improve is very important. And I want to show as an example something that I hope everyone is doing. I think everyone is doing. So let's take very easy process going to work. So I woke up in the morning and I do some things before I exit my apartment, or if someone lives in the house. So for the sake of the example, I've put 4 blocks: hygiene things, eating something, self-education, and dressing up, okay? Then I'm breaking down those big blocks of things to do into smaller pieces, okay? So I wash up, brush teeth, take a shower, etc., etc. Then what I can do in breakfast: coffee, sandwich. If I have more time, I will put sandwich in the microwave. If I have really a lot of time, maybe something a little bit more complicated. And be smarter, some self-education things. So maybe to watch TV on the background, to hear about the latest coronavirus spread. Is it the apocalypse already or not yet? And dressing up, again, starting with something basic and then building up the complexity. And then I start thinking, okay, no matter how much I overslept in the morning, I will not be able to go to work without doing this. Yeah? So this is absolute minimum for me. If I woke up at the lunchtime after yesterday's dinner, this is what I will do anyhow. The next thing in my priority list would be this. Yeah? And if I really have a lot of time, then I will do this. Both I don't have, so this is just example. And this is exactly the release planning then. So this is the first thing is your MVP, then the next release, and then the last things are somewhere in future, maybe if I would have time, and then I may realize that this 3-piece suit I don't even have, so I don't need this at all, so avoiding waste. And then I would maybe rather sleep more than actually do any of this stuff. So this is just a very easy example of how story mapping might be done. It really can be applied pretty much everywhere. Yeah? If you have to plan something, if you have hard time prioritizing and sequencing things, this is one of the tools that you can use. And now coming to the test automation topic. So in the galaxy far, far away, long time ago, we had a product to develop. It was mobile banking from scratch. We had the mandate from the management to use almost any technologies that we want to be on the leading edge in the bank. We had to hire a lot of people because at that time we didn't have enough expertise in the areas which were new and the technologies which were new. We started with 3 Scrum teams, of course 1 backlog, so it was 1 product. And at the beginning we had about 500,000 backlog items, out of which more than 250 were related to the tech stuff, so DevOps, test automation, etc. And it was really not an easy exercise. So it was not the chaos, but almost chaos. So coming to the test automation, if we will take this specifically. So we had 3 different teams, we had testers in every team. The chapter was very strong, but still, depending on what this specific team is developing, the needs for the testing might be slightly different. Different requirements, so exactly, so what to test. Different expectations, so some expectations from the line management, because this was the leading tribe and the know-how from this tribe would be then spread over the company. So expectations from line management, expectations from the different stakeholders, from the architecture, expectations from the PO. And different timing in order. So it was almost not clear when to do what and in which order, because it seems like really a lot of things are needed and almost at the same time, and the faster the better, and we need to do everything before the first MVP. So at least some expectations were similar to that. And we had a problem, pretty much the transpose problem. So we had test automation backlog, which of course, as I say, it's the backlog, but it was part of the one backlog of the product. We had this is just the example of the product backlog, and how to transpose this into this was kind of the challenge. And of course, at some point, we also needed a step before to realize that story mapping might be a chance to structure this better. And of course, the process on the top is the process of the user journey of the product. It doesn't fit good for the test automation, but the releases there is exactly how we would work as well. So we of course took this. And then the next step was in which time frame to put some of the things. Yeah? So we started having some discussions. Maybe we should do this first, maybe we should do this second, etc., etc. And so after this first initial exercise, we were putting the backlog items into some time frame and sequence. We said, okay, so it seems that it will fit. Let's really do the story mapping for the test automation. Let's define the test automation flow. So in this classical story mapping, this is a user journey. I call a taxi, I select the car, I set the destination, I pay, that's the user journey. In test automation, it's not like this. So what can be the flow? You usually developing first something locally, you build it, you deploy it to dev, you test it to dev, you test it on dev, you deploy it to ST, and the next stages depending on what is your configuration in your company, in your environment. And then for each of the steps here, of course, it's too high level. We needed to have more specific steps inside. And again, for each sub-step of the process, we defined in the exactly same structure as the product backlog, because we wanted it to be very, very compatible, of course. We defined the steps to improve the current situation. So, to prepare the test data, the guys were generating the loaders, first data loaders, then mocks. Then virtual bank was created. Then at some point in time on MVP, we were thinking to do this, and then for the test suits preparation to generate test suits on the basis of the team scale impact analysis. And then somewhere in the future we thought, it would be our ambition level to do this. Yeah. And again, this is the process steps, so the flow, and this is the complexity. So with each step, because this is super important, with each step you increase this complexity and you build upon the things that were already there. You improve with each small step the situation, 1 point at a time. The build as well, static code analysis with team scale, some security dependency checks, generate unit tests. And what is also very important is that it's not necessarily that for each and every step you have immediately to do something. Yeah? We were absolutely fine with doing the unit tests manually for, I don't know, for a huge amount of time, and it was okay. And you don't have to do everything at the time. Just think when it makes sense really to do. Because sometimes it just doesn't worsen effort to prove or disprove some hypothesis or to check your assumptions. Again, deploying to development, some sub-steps there. Again, split of the things into smaller pieces and so on and so forth. Depending on your environment, on your setup, your stages in your company, the steps might be different, but the structure will be pretty much the same. Because this is the very common flow. It's very common things that you do in the test automation field to set up the foundation and to integrate, this was the question actually also, the testing to be integrated in the DevOps cycle, of course, yes. And it should be, and it is, in at least our case, in a lot of points, yeah. And again, it's pretty similar exercise that was done for each step. And after, I think it was in total about 6 to 8 hours with testers, developers, security inputs, with architects, this was created. And here, by the way, you can see, because on the presentation it's not that easy to put everything, this is the current status, so the status quo. Some things we had automated almost in the very beginning, it was already there. We had CI/CD tool there. Some things were manual, and only some of them at the end of this picture would be automated. So in some cases, it's also not worth the effort to automate everything. It depends on what your product is about, what is the ambition level of the company towards this product, etc. And here you can see that also the prioritization. So this is not the static document or thing, not a document, because you change it over time. You change the priorities. You can see some things were moved from here to here or from here to here. So it's living thing, but it's something when you're starting, this creates this common ground. So, and yeah, nice feedback. So what we achieved with this, this was quite interesting exercise, a lot of debates, a lot of discussions, but the test automation theme, the whole theme was there. So it was very easy to read, to see, to understand the sequencing, the order, and the priorities. The product owner awareness of test automation and importance was immediately there, because in some cases, product owners might think, yeah, okay, test automation is a nice thing, it might be very easy to do, come on, there's test automation tools, you just put it there and that's it. But it's quite a lot of things to do. And by the way, some of the stickers there might be the task for just one sprint to do, some would be really big efforts for 1-2 months, so 4 sprints. Sometimes more, of course, they will be breaking down into smaller pieces, but the granularity sometimes might be different. So after the product owner introduction to this table, it was really like, aha, wow, you guys are doing quite some job here. And why are you doing this at that level? Why are you doing this at that moment in time? The reasoning was explained. It was challenged also with much more sense and much more reason from the product owner. And at the end, everyone was on the same page. And it was really an aha moment for the product owner. And almost out of this 80 to 20 ratio of the features and tech stuff was implemented. So we agreed with the product owner that every sprint, in average, we have 20% of the things done for the technical stuff. So for test automation, for DevOps setup, etc. Of course, sometimes it would be 100% for the features for a small period of time, because we also understand the importance of some milestones from the business side. Sometimes it would be 100% of the things technical. No, actually this never happened. So we didn't have this. But we had like about 50% for sure we had about solve from time to time, when we had to really clean up something or to do a big block of things. And this common understanding on the priorities over time. So each time anyone had a question, when we are doing this or that, the line managers, architects, whoever, the board is there. After each sprint, we are updating what was done, if this is exactly the piece that was done on the board. So this is also a good, I don't want to say reporting tool, but the visualization of the things that are done and what is the current status. So you don't need to explain much to the product owner, to the stakeholders, to the line managers. You just show the board and they see, okay, in our progress to the MVP, we already did this, and we are missing maybe a few more items to finalize. An outcome of the test automation backlog is this. This is our development pipeline. So something like this was done for approximately for the internal. So this is our physical test lab in the company. Something addition was built for the friends and family. More was built for MVP. This is our cloud test lab. And also, of course, I want to brag that the outcome of the product is that last week, my Raiffeisen, this is my Raiffeisen, was on the top chart in Apple Store in Hungary. This is the country where we are operating. And the fact that we beat Revolut at the time is really, I was positively surprised. So this is how we did it. And of course, there's still a long way to go further. We are working very heavily in the DevSecOps area. We have security champions that are going through the trainings who had not security background before. So exactly what Krista was talking about. So we have a journey, quite some journey ahead of us as well. Thank you. So.
Are you married?
Yes.
Okay, how long are you married?
For 7 years.
7 years. And you had, I would prefer more sleep as a priority over chatting with my wife.
You saw that's nice.
Okay. Okay. But you had it there, getting smarter, chatting with wife. That was right, yeah. Okay. Okay, so. No questions, no? Okay, so again, question at the back.
Sorry, I was able to see the presentation, but I saw that the line of the scope ideas from my perspective, and how to deal with that if you have many topics, and usually you don't have a time in release to go into the detail and to explain to everybody the, let's say, the more complex structure. How to deal with that? Because, for example, currently I'm in the release and we have there 4 sources for inputs for the test analysis, and each source has dozens, if not hundreds, of the topics which needed to be covered. And yes, I put it together. I've tried to do something like you presented in the first slides, and but now the guys, our team, if they saw how the picture big is, they are a little bit stressed. So how to deal with that, or how to explain them that we don't need to cover everything because exhaustive testing is impossible. So how to deal with that?
Well, this is basically the prioritization, and also the key is to understand exactly what I mentioned, the ratio of the tech stuff versus the business stuff if you have the business product or customer-facing product. Because the product owner, if he or she will say that, guys, I understand the tech stuff, its importance, you have about 20% of the things of the time in the sprint to work on this, then you can already have an understanding how much time you will have for doing the stuff. And then the team also understands that, guys, if we have only 20% each sprint, then we will not be ever able to do all of those things for this release. There is just no way. And this transparency, I mean, Agile in general, it's all about transparency. And just raising this awareness, and so every concern from the team should be brought up. And in case it's unrealistic, just openly state it's unrealistic. And I just hope that you have mature teams that will not just say it's unrealistic, because we just not want to do this that hard or work that tough. But it's really that because they, as a professionals and experts, they can really say that, guys, it's just not possible. And this common work with the product owner, with the team, I think this is the key. So we had this initial work done with the board, with the team. Then it was presented to the product owner. At that point, we realized that product owner would not contribute that much because of the lack of technical knowledge at that point. We decided that, yeah, it will make more sense to do it that way. In your case, it might be different. So of course, the sooner you include the bigger audience, the sooner you will have this common understanding of the picture and the reality. Yeah? So if it's not possible, then you just have to face the reality. I'm very transparent in this in every setting. So in my first sprints in the team, we were delivering 0 story points for first 3 sprints because of some stuff. And I was absolutely transparent to the whole bank, guys, we can't because of this and this and this. Some other teams I know where, yeah, we're almost done, so almost done is not done.
Maybe just a comment or question. Yeah? I understand this is not easy job, yeah, but usually, from my experience from past, if you are in this situation, you can get to the level that, yes, from the beginning, if you tell them we will use the traceability coverage, we will try to trace it to the stories or whatever, yeah. And finally, if you show them that the picture is too much or too big, yeah, and you will continue with this without really hard working with explanation, with the daily routines and so on, then finally you can get to the level that you seem that you are too theoretical for the team. Yeah? So they cannot see the added value if the picture is too big. Yeah? So just a comment. Yeah?
Yeah.
There is no clear solution for that.
But this is very, very valid comment, because depending on the scale and on the level where you're applying the story mapping, it should be on the different level of granularity. Because if you are working really with one particular team, for example, then one of the blocks there that I showed in this story mapping might be just the part of the process for the story mapping of this part, yeah. So for this particular team, so it can be hierarchical if it's needed. It can be very high level on the even very complex product. So we are now developing really, really complex product, and we have on the top this user journey, which are the blocks of work that might require a year of development. But this is needed in that stage for this level for better understanding and prioritization of the things. Yeah. When we are going into team level, it's completely different story. You're just taking a small piece, you bring it down. But of course, if the team doesn't see the value in this, then you can forget about this. It's just a waste of time.
Okay, I'll take a question from Slido. How does business value and changes in it influence the story mapping?
Well, this is the question. So if we are talking the story mapping, the story mapping for product features, this is the pure responsibility to do the prioritization. And the prioritization can be done based on different criteria. It might be the value from this particular feature, yeah, so getting money, but it might be also the prioritization based on the highest risks in the product that you want to tackle as quick as possible to understand, does it make sense to move forward at all? Yeah. So if you're basing the whole business model of the product on one or few specific features, which are killer features, but potentially basically killer features, this is just an assumption. So this might be the first thing that you try to implement, again, smaller, get the feedback, validate, and then to understand if to move forward. Yeah, so it might be a marketing cool killing feature which will not get money, but you must to try it as soon as possible, and this will move then in the story mapping on the top.
Okay, another question on Slido from Gabriel. How would you deal with different business units having completely different understanding of priorities and envisions?
Yes, empowered PO. This is basically the only thing. So you can't have multiple stakeholders. They have their different own say in what the priorities are, and it should be really one PO who is empowered, and it's not like a proxy PO between the stakeholders, board, or whomever to the team. It will not work, just definitely. So one person who is at the best responsible for the whole P&L of the product, and then he or she makes the decision.
Okay, time for one last question. Anybody?
So when you make the story map for the automation, you have that first minimal viable product and the other releases. Did you use anything like having release tags or describing what the minimal viable product stands for, so you can better explain to the organization what you will have in the end, what presence you have, or what advantage you will have once you've done all the things in that first release?
So of course we had this for the product level. For the test automation, we had it partially, I would say, because our main intention was to convince, to onboard the PO on our level, and the explanation, what does it mean, this step and this stage was enough. Yeah, because again, we had empowered enough PO that we didn't have to go further. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, thank you. It's coffee time. So, thank you to Backlog.